what questions are you seeing most from lawyers about AI and ChatGPT? I'm just going to, kind of use them superfluously, for the rest of today, because I think most people it's largely one knowledge set.
Like different categories, right? So like, what about the ethics of using something like this? What about ownership of information and data, which is the question lawyers ask about everything, right? Mm-hmm. And then how do I use it effectively? Like, it's funny, like with all the bar associations I talk to, they're like, hey, do you have somebody in the legal space who's an expert on this topic that you could get us to talk with? And I'm like, I don't know if anybody's like an expert in it yet. I'm sure there are people out there. I haven't really heard of them, at least in this space, but I do think like there's a lot of questions around usability and ethics. Those are probably like the two biggest I've seen so far.
Is it mostly, do you feel like these questions are coming from more on the operational side of the coin versus, because my perspective on a lot of this coming out is there's these commercial applications for it with SEO or social media, different things like that, or document automation, for things like that. Do you think the first kind of wave, lawyers are more interested in how they use it in their day-to-day as opposed to, maybe how do they promote their business?
Yeah, I don't think like you've got a lot of lawyers using ChatGPT to perform like legal tasks. And it's not really ready for, so if you ask it to perform a legal task, right? Like write me an eviction notice if you're a landlord or something like that. Or even if you were an attorney and you said, hey, draft me this contract type, it'll do it. But then it will have a little clause at the end that says, by the way, I'm not an attorney. And if you want legal advice, you should seek an attorney to get that from. So I think that's probably encouraging for a lot of lawyers to know. And the other thing is that sometimes it just makes stuff up. So I have a friend of mine who's an ethics counsel, and he asked ChatGPT to write him a brief on an ethics issue. And because it's a generative AI, it is going to populate certain things into the AI. And if there's no source for that, it's going to make up a source. So this is one of the reasons why you don't do this for legal work necessarily. So it had like 3 or 4 citations in that brief, and they were like completely made up because the system's like, there should be a site here. So we're going to put one in place. So what I see a lot of attorneys doing is that if they're trying to use this to get an early draft of a position statement or a settlement letter or something like that, they will say, okay, thanks for writing that. Now provide me your sources, and ChatGPT will provide sources as well. And in some cases, those items won't be sourced. So the use cases, that's a roundabout way to say, I don't see lawyers using it for substantive legal stuff right now, at least as providing an end result. Like that's something you have to finagle and tweak before you get it to an end result. As far as the kind of stuff you're talking about, yeah, like I see lawyers using it for business processes, and I see lawyers using it for marketing. So I've got a consulting client that I just started working with who loves ChatGPT. She's on there all the time. And every time we have a conversation, she's like, okay, I'm going to ask ChatGPT what my pricing model should be for my law firm. Then we're going to work on the prompts, and then I want you to refine it. And I'm like, okay, this is an entirely new thing for me, but I'm game. We can do that. So pricing models, I see law firms using this to develop processes like, hey, I need a workflow for a particular case type, or I need a workflow for this administrative task we do constantly. And ChatGPT is pretty good for that, actually. And also that's like not something you're publishing necessarily or producing for a client. So that back office stuff, there's a little less risk involved in that. And then the other thing I've seen, as you alluded to before, is like business applications for marketing, for SEO. I see people start to develop content on ChatGPT. So I had a friend of mine who was a legal tech executive who left his company and started his own business. And he wanted to start a consulting company to begin with. So he had ChatGPT write his entire website for the consulting company. He's like, all right, I'm a consultant with this level of experience. These are the type of organizations I want to work with. I need you to spit out a sitemap for me. And then I need you to write content for each of the pages. And it did it. And he published the site like with very few edits on it. And it's actually pretty good. So those are the two, I think, most primary use cases. Back office stuff, marketing content is what lawyers are using it for right now, as far as I've seen.